The sky was soft blue, with clouds floating like feathers below the crystal tower. This tower was not just beautiful, it was a palace in the air. Inside lived a rich alien woman named Sareth. With skin like silver and long glowing hair, she was famous, powerful, and owned cities across the floating lands. But in the tallest room of the tower, her heart was always heavy. Her daughter, Lyra, was born different. She had no legs, just smooth skin where legs should have been. The doctors called it a rare birth condition, and no cure existed. Sareth spent millions on alien tech, hired the best surgeons, and even tried dangerous healing crystals. But nothing worked. Now Lyra was 10 years old. She sat in a hover chair made of soft white glass, watching the world through a big round window. Other children ran and laughed. In the sky garden far below, she pressed her small hand against the window. Wishing, always wishing. Her eyes were bright blue, full of dreams. But her lips stayed quiet. One evening, thunder cracked outside, the tower lights flickered, and the power core made strange sounds. Sareth ordered a mechanic to come at once. But most engineers refuse. No one wanted to risk working in a storm that high in the sky. Except one human. His name was Jack. He was tall, covered in dust, with a toolbox hanging from his belt. No one paid much attention to him, just a human fixer in a place of wealth. But Jack had once been something more. Before the war, before he lost his brother, before he stopped believing in heroes, he came up to the power room, checked wires, and worked silently. But then he took a wrong turn in the hallway. He opened a door without a sign, and what he saw made him freeze. There was a little girl, floating inches above the ground in her hover chair. She was trying to pick up a toy that had rolled under a table. Her hands stretched, her body tilted. She almost fell. Jack rushed forward and caught her just in time. She looked up at him, her eyes wide. He smiled gently. "Easy there, you all right?" She nodded, not speaking, holding the soft toy tight in her arms. He helped her back into the center of the room. "I didn't mean to come in. I'm Jack." "Ha ha, I was just fixing the power," he said. Still, Lyra didn't speak, but she didn't look afraid either. She simply stared at his legs, then down at her own missing limbs. Jack swallowed hard, something sharp twisting inside his chest. He had seen broken things before: ships, machines, weapons. But this was different. This was a child who had never walked. Later that night, when the power was fixed, Jack didn't leave the tower right away. Instead, he sat in his small room in the servant quarters, staring at his old datapad. It had files from Earth, forgotten schematics, cybernetic plans his brother once used. Human tech was different from alien tech. It was rough, simple, sometimes even ugly, but it worked. He thought about Lyra's quiet face, her small hands reaching for the toy. Could he build something for her? Something to help her walk? It was dangerous, maybe even illegal. Sareth was rich and powerful. She could have him thrown from the tower for even trying. But Jack remembered his brother's last words. If you can help someone walk when they were never meant to, that's not tech. That's a miracle. The next day, Jack returned to the engine room, but he secretly scanned the medical room files, downloaded Lyra's neural data from the public systems. He began to sketch designs in secret. Late at night, he scavenged old parts from the tower's unused machines. Small servos, carbon rods, muscle wire from old defense droids. Slowly, a plan formed: 2 thin legs, shaped to fit her body, powered by thought. No fancy alien biogel or floating orbs, just old-fashioned Earth mechanics with a bit of human soul. But he didn't know how to ask Sareth, and he knew if he tried without her permission, it could cost him everything. Then one morning, as he passed the hallway, he saw Lyra again. She waved at him this time, and her small voice spoke. "Thank you for catching me?" Jack blinked, then smiled. "Any time, princess," he said. and inside he made a promise. He would give her legs. He didn't know how long it would take. He didn't know if it would work. But she deserved to stand. She deserved to run. She deserved a miracle, and Jack's just a dusty human mechanic was going to try. Asterisk rain fell gently over the floating towers, tapping against the glass windows like soft whispers. Inside the crystal tower, Jack worked quietly in the lower repair bay. His hands were covered in grease, wires scattered all around. But his eyes weren't focused on repairs, they were locked on something else. A design, glowing faintly on his datapad. 2 thin cybernetic legs, human-made, customized for one girl only. Every night after his shift, Jack built in secret. He used parts from old machines, careful not to take too much from any one system. If someone found out, he would be punished, maybe even thrown off the city. But he didn't care, because every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lyra's small face. Hope lived in her eyes now. And Jack couldn't let that hope die. He tested the legs, using a simulation core. They moved, jerkily at first, but they moved. The neural interface worked with basic commands, if he could. Sync it with Lyra's unique brain signals, it could work. Not maybe. Not probably, he believed it could really work. The problem was time. The Crystal Tower was not a place where humans stayed long. Every week, new techs came and old ones left. He had to finish before someone replaced him. Then one morning, it happened. Jack was walking toward the elevator when Sereth appeared. She wore a long silver robe, her eyes sharp and cold. Behind her floated 2 nobles. Whispering in a strange alien tongue, "You," she said. Stopping him, Jack froze, toolbox in hand. "Yes, Lady Sereth." She stepped closer. "You entered a private room 2 weeks ago, didn't you?" He swallowed hard. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean to. She raised her hand, stopping him. "I know what you're building," she said, her voice low. Jack's heart dropped. "Security found your hidden schematics." She continued. "Cybernetic limbs for a child, made with Terran tech." The nobles behind her chuckled. One muttered, "Foolish human dreams." Jack took a breath. "I wasn't trying to break rules. I just wanted to help her." Sereth's eyes narrowed. "Help her? You think your old Earth scrap is better than our galaxy's finest doctors?" Jack didn't move. "No, I don't think it's better. I just think it's different." She stepped closer, towering over him. "If you fail, she could be hurt worse than before," she whispered. "If I do nothing, she'll never walk." He replied. Sereth turned away, thinking. Then a small voice came from behind the pillar. "Mother, please let him try." It was Lyra, hiding in her hover chair, her hands gripping the armrests. Her voice was shaking, but she spoke clearly. "I want to try, even if it hurts. I want to try." Sereth looked at her daughter, and for a long moment, her face softened, but the softness was gone in seconds, replaced by cold pride. "Fine," she said at last. "One chance," she pointed at Jack. "You get one trial, one test. If it fails, you leave this tower and never return." Jack nodded. "That's all I need." He returned to his lab, heart racing. He had just days to finish and prepare the neural sync system. He worked through nights, barely sleeping. He adjusted the socket joints to fit her bone structure, tuned the sensors to respond to her brain waves. He even added soft padding around the joints so it wouldn't feel like metal. It would feel like part of her. On the 4th day, he carried the legs to the testing chamber. Sereth waited there with 2 guards and a quiet medical bot. Lyra was already in place, lying on the padded table. She looked nervous, but when she saw Jack, she smiled. Jack knelt beside her. "Are you ready, princess?" She nodded slowly. "I trust you." He gently attached the connectors to her lower body. The legs clicked into place, smooth and silent. He powered up the system. A soft hum filled the air. The room held its breath. The legs twitched, then moved. Slightly, Jack looked at the screen. Lyra's brainwaves were syncing. "Try to move your foot," he said gently. Lyra focused, her brow tightened. Then, her right foot lifted, just a little. Gasps filled the room. Jack smiled. "Good. Now?" The other one, she moved the left, a bit shaky, but it moved. He helped her sit up. "Now try to stand," he whispered. Lyra looked scared. She placed both feet on the floor. Jack supported her arms as she leaned forward. Slowly, slowly, she pushed herself up. Her legs wobbled, knees shaking, but she didn't fall. She was standing. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes wide. The guards lowered their weapons, speechless. Lyra looked at her mother. "I'm standing," she whispered. Sarah didn't answer. Her mouth was slightly open. Jack knelt down, eyes full of pride. "You did it," he said. Lyra laughed, then cried, her first tears of joy. "I'm really standing," she said again. "With my own legs." Jack looked at Sirith, not asking for thanks. He had done what he came to do. But Sirith's lips moved quietly. "Maybe I was wrong about humans." The testing room was silent. Only the soft hum of the cybernetic legs filled the space. Lyra stood there, tiny and trembling, but still standing. Her chest rose and fell quickly, as if she had climbed a mountain. But she wasn't tired. She was overwhelmed. Jack stayed close, just in case she fell. He didn't speak, didn't move. He knew this moment belonged to her. Lyra looked down at her new legs. They were smooth, silver gray, shaped like real limbs. They didn't glow or hover like alien tech. They looked strong, simple, human. She bent one knee slowly. Surprised, it followed her thought like magic. Then she bent the other for the first time. Her body obeyed her will. She laughed, a soft sound at first. Then louder, "I can feel them," she said. "I can feel the floor." Jack's eyes were wet, but he smiled. "That's your first step, princess." Sarah stood frozen by the wall, her long fingers clenched around her sash. She didn't speak, didn't cheer, but her eyes never left her daughter. Lyra took one step forward. Her arms stretched out for balance. The leg trembled, but held. Then another step, slower, careful. Jack moved backward a little, giving her space. Lyra looked like a newborn fawn, unsteady, unsure, but determined. Then she stumbled. Jack rushed to catch her, but she caught herself. She giggled. "I didn't fall." Jack laughed too. That's better than most people on their first try. The medical bot beeped nervously, warning that the girl's heart rate was too high, but Lyra didn't care. She took 3 more steps and stopped in front of a small mirror on the far wall. For the first time, she saw her reflection standing tall. Not floating, not sitting, standing. She placed her hand on the glass, eyes wide. "I'm really me now," she whispered. Behind her, Sarah finally spoke. "You were always you," she said, her voice strange, like something inside her had cracked. "But now the world can see you too." The next day, news spread like wildfire. Rumors of the human mechanic who made a crippled alien child walk reached the high towers. People whispered in tea rooms, sent messages across the CityNet. Is it true? Was it magic, or just old human junk? Some laughed, some doubted, but the truth couldn't be denied. Lyra had walked. And someone had recorded it. The video leaked to the public, showing her shaky first steps. Jack by her side, it reached millions in hours. Requests poured in noble. Houses, rich merchants, even off-world ambassadors. Everyone wanted Jack's design. Everyone wanted legs that worked without needing alien crystal implants. But Jack said, "No, it's not for sale." He told them it was made for one little girl, not for profit. The offers grew bigger. A governor offered him a ship. Another offered a lab with unlimited funding. Still, he refused. His hands had built something from care. Not greed, and no credit, no money could buy that. Sareth watched silently as the messages filled her console. She had once thought humans were just lower beings, useful, but not important. Now she wasn't sure. That afternoon, she invited Jack and Lyra to the skywalk. It was a long glass bridge that floated between two towers. Most children played there, running across the clear floor with laughter. Lyra had never been there, not as a guest, not as a walker. Jack walked beside her slowly, his hand near her elbow, just in case. The wind was strong, the sky clear. They stepped onto the bridge. People turned. At first, they didn't recognize her. Then, a whisper spread. "That's her, the girl who walked." The crowd went silent, watching her every step. Some were curious, others stunned. Lyra walked carefully, but confidently, across the bridge. The sound of her footsteps echoed against the glass floor. A child ran up to her and asked, "Are those magic legs?" She smiled and said, "No, they're made with kindness." Jack couldn't help but smile. To him, it wasn't just about legs. It was about giving someone back the part of life they were told they could never have. Suddenly, a woman in fancy robe stepped forward and said loudly, "My son can't walk either, can you help him, human?" Others followed, shouting questions, begging for help. The crowd surrounded Jack, pulling at his jacket, holding datapads toward him. Jack backed away, confused. Lyra held his hand tightly, her eyes scared now. Why are they yelling? Sarah stepped forward and raised her hand. "Enough," she said, her voice sharp and commanding. "This human gave my daughter a gift, not a product." The crowd grew quiet again. "Let her walk in peace," she said, and for the first time in years, people listened to her not because of her money, but because of her daughter. That night, Jack sat alone in his tiny room. He looked out at the stars and thought about what came next. He knew people would come for the design. Some would try to steal it, but he also knew something else. He had changed a life, maybe more, and that was just the first step. The sky above the floating city was clear and golden. Morning light shimmered through the clouds, painting the crystal towers with soft colors. But all eyes that day were focused on one place, the skywalk. It stretched between two tall towers like a shining glass bridge. Children used to run across it while nobles sipped tea in the gardens below. But today, something different was happening. Something unforgettable. The skywalk was filled with silence. No footsteps, no chatter, just waiting. Cameras hovered quietly. News drones flashing red lights. Reporters whispered, unsure if the rumors were true. Then the glass doors opened. Out stepped Lyra. She wore a simple, soft dress, her silver blue hair tied behind her head. But no one looked at her clothes. All eyes dropped to her legs. Human-built, thin but strong, moving with perfect rhythm. Jack walked beside her, toolbox slung over one shoulder. He wasn't wearing anything fancy, just his old earth jacket and boots. But in that moment, he was more important than any prince. People watched as Lyra stepped onto the skywalk. Her first steps were slow but steady. Her eyes were full of wonder. She had never walked across anything so wide, so open. The wind brushed her cheeks. She felt it differently now in her skin, not just through a window. Her toes pressed against the glass floor. She could feel everything warm, cold, smooth, shaky. For the first time in her life, she was not floating, not sitting. She was walking. Children from noble families stepped aside. Some stared, others whispered. A few smiled at her. One boy clapped. And then, others joined. Clap, clap, clap. It started slow, then louder. Applause spread across the bridge and echoed between the towers. Even the sky gardens below were quiet. People watching the screen feeds with wet eyes. Sareth stood at the far end of the bridge, hands folded. She didn't smile, but her eyes were full of emotion. She had fought every law, every doctor, every voice that said her daughter would never walk, and now a simple mechanic, had done the impossible. Lyra reached the middle of the skywalk, paused, and turned in a slow circle. "I'm not dreaming, right?" she asked Jack. Jack smiled. "No, princess, you're wide awake." She laughed and twirled slowly. People gasped as she did it with balance, with grace. One of the reporters whispered into his mic, This is history, but not everyone was pleased." In a tall tower across the city, a sharp-eyed noble named Varric watched the broadcast. His family owned medical factories, and he had invested billions in alien cybernetic systems. He slammed his fist on the glass table. "This human ruined everything," he growled. "If poor people start asking for cheap human tech, our profits will fall." His assistant asked, "Should we offer to buy the design?" Varric shook his head. "No, humans are stubborn. This one especially." He looked at the screen. "Steal it, if you must." Back on the skywalk, Sereth called for a transport. Lyra had walked far, and though her spirit was strong, her body was still adjusting. Jack helped her sit gently on a floating chair. She waved at the crowd, and they cheered louder. One old alien woman in a wheelchair called out, "Bless you, child," as the transport rose. Sereth leaned toward Jack. "You have no idea what you've started," she said softly. Jack looked at her. "I didn't start anything. I just gave her what she deserved." She nodded once. Slowly that evening, Jack's workshop was full of messages. Thousands of requests, from rich and poor, across planets and species. Some begged, some demanded, some offered money. Others offered threats, but Jack didn't open a single one. He sat beside Lyra instead, helping her stretch her new legs. "Do you think other kids will get legs like mine?" she asked. Jack nodded. "Someday? Yes." Lyra smiled. "Then I'm not just the first. I'm the start." That night, Sereth did something no one expected. She opened a private channel to the Galactic Sky Council. She requested a meeting not as a business leader, but as a mother. Her voice echoed in the Hall of Leaders. "My daughter walked today because of a human," she began. "He didn't ask for money or fame or favors. He gave her something no one else could." Some council members scoffed. Others listened closely. "I asked for his protection," she said, "because what he created will change the galaxy." Outside the hall, a shadow moved. Varric's spies were already at work. They didn't want change. They wanted silence. But it was too late. The skywalk had shaken the city, and hope real. Simple hope had already taken its first steps. The morning after the skywalk event, Jack woke up to a strange silence. No humming servos. Number blinking maintenance lights. The entire floor felt still. He sat up on his cot, rubbed his eyes, and looked around. His small workshop, usually warm and messy, was cold and dark. His toolbox was open. Some drawers were left hanging, and on the workbench, the leg's backup design chip was missing. Jack's heart dropped. He ran to the cabinet empty. The prototype schematics were gone. Only one thing remained. Small paper card with 3 words. "You don't own it." He grabbed his coat and ran down the hallway. Servants watched him pass, whispering. When he reached the top deck, guards blocked his way. "You're not allowed inside the tower," one of them said. Jack frowned. "What? Why not?" "Orders from the council," the guard replied. "Your clearance has been revoked." Jack clenched his jaw. He knew what this meant. Someone had taken his design and now someone powerful was trying to erase him down below. In the medical wing, Lyra was trying to stand when the problem started. Her legs, strong and responsive just a day ago, suddenly twitched and locked. She cried out, fell backward, and hit the floor. Alarms blared, and medbots rushed in. Sarath flew into the room seconds later. Lyra, she shouted, lifting her daughter gently. The bot scanned the legs and displayed a flashing warning. Neural mismatch. Foreign code detected. What foreign code? Sarath demanded. But the bots had no answers. They weren't built to understand Terran tech. Only one person could, Jack. But he wasn't in the tower anymore. He had been escorted out, thrown into a sky shuttle, and dropped in the outer zone with nothing but his jacket and datapad. Still, Jack wasn't a man who gave up. He hacked into a local terminal and accessed the tower's security logs. What he found made his blood boil. Footage showed a man in rich robes entering his lab at night. He wore gloves and a cloaked Bajveric's house symbol. He had downloaded the core design, altered the code, and left quietly. Jack knew what this meant. The version inside Lyra's legs had been remotely corrupted. If left unchecked, the system would overheat, overcharge, and possibly cause internal damage. He raced to the city gate, but the guards turned him away. No entry without royal permission, they said. Jack shouted, begged, then finally punched the gate wall. His knuckles bled, but he didn't stop. Then a miracle happened. A small hovercar landed beside the gate. Inside was Sarath, her hair messy, her eyes wild with panic. "Get in," she said. "Now." They sped through the sky, wind howling past the windows. "She's in pain," Sarath whispered. "The legs?" They betrayed her. Jack didn't speak. He was already opening his datapad. Lines of code flashed across the screen, faster than any alien healer could read. "She needs a manual override," Jack muttered. Sarath's hands trembled on the wheel. "You gave her a gift, and someone turned it into a weapon." They reached the tower just as medbots were preparing to detach the legs. "No," Jack shouted, running inside. "Don't disconnect if you pull them now. The nerve endings could be damaged forever." The bots paused, confused. Sarath raised her voice. "Stand down. Let the human fix it." Jack knelt beside Lyra. She was sweating, shaking, barely conscious. "I'm here, princess," he whispered. "Hold on." He plugged a cord from his datapad into the leg spine joint, typed fast, sweat pouring down his face. He found the corrupted line, something hidden deep inside the core logic. He wiped it, replaced it with his original stream, and reset the sync. Lyra gasped, then went still. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then, her legs twitched, moved. She opened her eyes and smiled weakly. "It's warm again," she whispered. "It listens to me." Sarath collapsed into a chair, covering her face. Jack leaned back, hands shaking. "It's fixed," he said. But someone tried to destroy her future. Later, in Sarath's private chamber, she placed a data crystal on the table. "This is a copy of the lab's security footage," she said. "Give it to the council. Varric will answer for this." Jack took the crystal but hesitated. "They'll try to silence us," he said. "They already did once." Sarath looked him in the eyes. "Then we make it louder." Jack stood up, feeling something new inside him. He had started this journey just wanting to fix one child's life. But now, he knew this wasn't just about one girl. It was about all of them. The forgotten, the broken, the ones no one believed in. And if that meant facing the council, or even the galaxy, he was ready. Because kindness had a price, but letting evil win cost far more. The stars above the capital shined cold and bright, a sea of light across black velvet sky. But inside the grand hall of the Galactic Council, tension filled the air like smoke. Rows of alien leaders sat high in their floating seats, wrapped in gold, metal, and mist robes. The room glowed with soft blue light, and below them stood a human, Jack. His hands were behind his back, his boots still dusty. He had no armor, no title, no army. But the truth stood beside him. And truth did not need armor. Beside him, Sarath. stood tall, wearing her noble crest. She hadn't spoken in a council chamber in 10 years. But today, she wasn't speaking as a business leader. She was speaking as a mother. A judge with 10 blinking eyes stared down at Jack. "You stand accused of illegal cybernetic creation, unauthorized use of royal medical systems, and risking the life of a minor." A wave of murmurs filled the room. Jack stayed quiet. Then Sareth stepped forward. Her voice firm. "Lyra, my daughter, was born without legs," she said. No doctor helped her. No noble offered solutions. No council paid attention. She looked around slowly, but one human, a mechanic with grease-stained hands, gave her the ability to walk. One of the counselors spoke sharply. "With stolen tech, no." Sareth replied, "With forgotten tech, human tech, simple, kind, and real." Another counselor leaned forward. "And what of the corrupted code?" "Planted by Lord Varric's men," she said, placing the data crystal on the podium. "This shows his spies entering Jack's lab, stealing his design and damaging my daughter's neural link." The room went quiet. One by one, the council watched the footage. The screen showed a cloaked figure copying files, sneaking out and uploading foreign code into the prototype. Jack didn't speak. He just looked at the floor and waited. Because he knew he was right, and sometimes, being right was louder than shouting. When the footage ended, the chief judge looked at Varric. "Do you deny this?" Varric stood slowly, his face pale. "That footage could be fake, made by Earth tricks," he said. But the council was already turning cold. A member from the Vayari species, with skin like flowing ink, raised their hand. "I was one of the doctors who told Sareth there was no hope. They said I was wrong." Another from the Starborn Alcon said, "My niece was born with no arms. Could this human help her too?" One by one, council members began asking questions not about punishment, but about possibility. Could Jack's designs be copied? Could they be shared freely? Could they bring hope to the children of the poor, the wounded soldiers, the forgotten? Varric shouted, "This will destroy our economy. Our healing centers will collapse." Jack finally raised his voice. "Then maybe they should," he said. "If they failed people like Lyra, maybe they don't deserve to stay the same." The chamber went silent. Sareth looked at him, then turned to the council. "This human doesn't want money," she said. "He refused every offer, turned down kings and merchants." She placed her hand over her heart. "He only wanted one thing, kindness." The chief judge blinked slowly, then spoke. "Jack of Earth, we cannot ignore what you've done." Jack braced himself, but the judge continued. "You gave a child her legs. You exposed corruption. You brought hope." The judge raised a glowing rod. "I name you a protected citizen of the sky worlds." The chamber exploded in sound. Some cheered, some argued, some left in protest, but it was done. Jack was no longer just a mechanic. He was now a citizen. With rights, with protection, with voice. Varric was taken away by guards, his cries echoing down the halls. Sareth turned to Jack. "It's not over, you know?" Jack nodded. "I know. It's just the beginning." Outside, a crowd waited under the starry sky. When they saw Jack step out, they clapped, shouted, threw petals into the air. But Jack didn't smile for the cameras. He walked straight toward a small girl waiting. At the steps, Lyra, she stood proudly with her new legs, arms wide. Jack knelt and hugged her tight. "You did it," she whispered. "No." Jack said softly, "We did it." The next day, Sareth made a public announcement. Her sky palace would be turned into a new hospital. Not for nobles, but for anyone in need. And Jack, he would lead it, not as a doctor, not as a hero, just as a human who believed that kindness could change everything. The Sky Palace was no longer a place of gold and quiet silence. Now it was full of laughter, tools, wheelchairs, and little feet learning to walk. The bright halls echoed with the clinking of metal and the soft voices of hope. Jack stood in the middle of it all, wearing his old Earth jacket, grease on his fingers, datapad in one hand, and a gentle smile on his face. They called it the First Step Clinic, and it was the first of its kind. Alien children came from everywhere, some without arms, some with broken spines, some who had never taken a step in their lives, and one by one, Jack and his growing team gave them new limbs. Not magical, not expensive, but real, working. Simple, strong. Jack never asked for money. He only asked for silence when he worked. And courage from the children. Lyra, now a little stronger. Every day was his helper. She walked proudly beside him in the hallways, wearing a small badge on her chest. It read, Tech Assistant Lyra of the Sky. She helped the younger kids sit calmly during fittings. She showed them how to move their new legs gently, and when someone was scared, she whispered her favorite words. I couldn't walk, either. Now I run. Sareth had changed too, once cold and distant. She now wore simple robes. She worked at the front of the clinic, welcoming each family herself. No guards, no velvet ropes. Just open doors and warm lights. Some nobles laughed behind her back. They said she was wasting her riches, but she didn't care. She had already earned more than gold. She had earned her daughter's joy. Then one day, a message came from deep space. A freighter ship had found a crashed escape pod. Inside was a child, barely alive, from a rare aquatic race with no legs. Her name was Valley. And her gills were drying out. She needed help, and quickly, Jack sent a shuttle within hours. Valley arrived, barely breathing, her lower body shriveled. From weeks without water, most doctors shook their heads. Her species had never walked. Not even on their own planet. But Jack looked at her and said the same words he always did. Let's give her a chance. He and Lyra worked day and night. They built a hybrid leg system that could survive both water and air. It was risky, strange, experimental, but Valley opened her eyes on the third night and whispered, Will it hurt? Lyra held her hand, only a little at first. Then it will feel like flying. When Valley stood for the first time, the entire clinic clapped. Her finned feet clicked on the floor, awkward but powerful. And when she took her first step, the world shifted again. The news spread. More children. Came even older veterans warriors who had lost limbs in battles long forgotten arrived in silence. They didn't ask for pity, only hope. Jack gave them both. Soon, humans from Earth joined the clinic. Engineers, nurses, builders, old soldiers. Young dreamers, together, they trained aliens in how to fix, build, and teach. Within months, more clinics opened on desert planets. Frozen moons, underwater cities, all based on Jack's work. But Jack stayed in the original tower. He liked hearing the sound of new footsteps echo through the old glass halls. One night, Sareth walked onto the roof where Jack sat watching the stars. She brought 2 cups of warm tea and sat beside him. You could have become a legend, she said. You could have taken credit. Ruled entire planets with your tech. Jack shrugged. I didn't want to be a legend, he said. I just wanted one little girl to walk. Sareth looked at him, and instead, you made a galaxy walk. They sat in silence for a while. Then Sareth asked softly, Do you miss Earth? Jack smiled. Sometimes. But this place, these people, they've given me a reason to stay below them. Lyra raced across the skywalk with Valley beside her. The aquatic girl laughed, her steps fast and strong. Behind them, a small line of children followed, each one walking for the first time. Jack watched them with pride in his eyes. Not pride in himself, but in them. Because they were proof that even one act of kindness, one risk, one choice could ripple across the stars. Not with fire, not with war, but with footsteps, simple, steady, beautiful footsteps.